Hey, it's Corey with Freedom Investing Group, and today I'm going to talk about valuing mobile home parks. So what I'm going to talk about is probably going to sound overly simplified because it's not very hard. It doesn't take very long. This is straight out of Frank Rolfe's boot camp, and when I first heard it, I was like, it seems almost like too easy to be valuable, but it's amazing how quickly and easily you can get pretty darn close to the value of a mobile home park really quickly, like less than a couple minutes. To value a mobile home park, I think I've talked before about how they're valued based on cap rate. The cap rate is just something you apply to you need the net operating income to divided by the cap rate is the value. If your park was bringing in $100,000 a year after all the expenses were paid, it'd be worth $2 million. 100 divided by 0.05 is 2 million. But there's some nuance to that. So you can only include the lot rent in your NOI. So for your income side, you don't want to include any park on home rent. This is where a lot of people get screwed up, and even a lot of brokers I see will do this if they're less experienced. So I was actually just talking to a real estate agent friend of mine. She lists mostly high-end houses, but came across a mobile home park. And so she was talking to me, trying to figure out how to value this thing and things to think about. So I'll use some real numbers. I won't use the name of the deal. Well, I'm actually going to tweak the numbers a little bit. But anyway, so the cool thing is that most mobile home parks, if you see one come along and it's like the expense, if you take the expenses divided by the gross income, it's 10% or something, the pro forma is just off. Like, just start with the assumption it's wrong, and you're going to figure out where. Oh, okay, we're not including insurance, we're not including taxes, we're not including snow plowing, we're not including maintenance on sewer and water lines, all the things you have to have. So it's probably, your park's probably going to be at a 40% expense ratio, plus or minus 10%. If it's really screwed up, it'll be more than 50. I have a hard time imagining one less than 30. Maybe you could get really efficient with some things. Just start with the assumption it's 40%, and you can be pretty darn close. So what you can do is just take the number of lots times the lot rent times 12. That gets you your gross annual income, and then times 0.6, because that means you're keeping 60% of it, you're spending 40% on expenses. And there's your NOI. Boom. Probably pretty close. Then divide the NOI by whatever cap rate you think is appropriate, and voila, you have a value. So if your park was bringing in $100,000 a year, say you took the number of occupied, don't always want to pay for non-occupied lots, you might value them a little bit, but you can add that in after the fact. Number of occupied lots times the lot rent, not park on home, times 12. Let's say that gets you to $100,000. And then you take the $100,000, multiply by 0.6, and you get $60,000. There's probably close to your NOI. And now you need to divide by cap rate. So how do you pick a cap rate? It's not that complicated. So they're going to trade at different cap rates depending on the market. But in general, if you're looking for some cash flow, a good rule of thumb that Frank Rolfe threw out is you want a 3-point spread on the interest rate you're paying on your loan. So you need to have talked to a lender and figured out what that is. If right now loans are at 6%, that might be 9%. If you want to get a little more competitive, say you think there's value add, maybe you're willing to take a little lower return up front for some value add. Sometimes I'll go to a 2-point spread, which still will typically have decent cash flow year one, but maybe the lot rents, if you find where the lot rents are under, or there's some other easy value adds. But so let's say interest rates right now are 6%, should be 8 to 9%. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and go 8. So I just paused for a second to punch that in my calculator. At an 8 cap, the $60,000 of net operating income would be worth $750,000. At a 9 cap, it's going to be worth less. Maybe it's 600. So call it 700,000, 750. Somewhere in there is probably the value of the thing. Now there could be some other add-ons, right? Like maybe there's some really nice park-owned homes. You would then take the value of those and add that to the value of the property with a cap rate. You would not cap rate the park on home income. You'll end up overvaluing the homes. I don't know, if it's 1990s, maybe it's a 15,000, maybe you get 15,000 for it. 2000s or newer, maybe you're 20 or 30 grand per home, are kind of what we've been seeing things sell for recently. Could be more in a super hot market. But there you go, 750 grand. It's not that hard. I want to talk more, but that's all there is to it. Sometimes there's educating people though on not cap rating the park owned homes. And there's actually, I didn't understand why at first. I heard you're not supposed to do that, but I didn't fully get the why behind it. And there's a really good reason. It's because I always just heard, oh, it's because the park owned homes aren't real property; they're personal property. So who cares? They still bring in income. Why wouldn't you cap rate it? Turns out lenders, it's really the lenders that drive this. Most savvy commercial lenders will not include the park owned home income when capping the property. So the value that the lender will use to determine the loan to value ratio on the property does not include it. So one really scary thing that can happen is you think you're a badass investor. Yes, I negotiated seller financing. It's this thing that everybody wants. Woohoo! It's so hard to get, and we got it. We got great terms, but it balloons in 2 years. But that's fine, because then we'll just we'll get the sale done, and then we'll refinance out into a conventional commercial loan with a lender. But you apply the cap rate to the homes and end up way overvaluing them because maybe they have really high park-owned home rent. Then you go to refinance, and you can't refinance enough out to pay off your balloon note. Everything else is working. The property is, it's making the loan payments. It's cash flowing. Everything's great. You can't pay off the balloon note. You lose the property to term default. Boom, investment gone, 100% loss. That sucks. So don't cap rate the park-owned home income. That's why. Hope you found that helpful. Cheers.